right, welcome back to another episode of Waking the People. I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and I'm with my co-host and special guest today, which we're stoked about. So, Joshua, take it away, brother.
Good morning, my fellow patriots. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, 8 a.m. I'm in the great state of Florida. If you are as well, it's going to be a little bit of a hot one today, so be prepared. But today is a monumental day, not only for this show, but for everything that this show stands for. Today, we are lucky enough to have a former Trump administration policy advisor in the House, and he's going to be willing to talk to us about his experiences, the contributions that he's made to this country for the last 4 years. Also, he is one of the smartest people I know. He is one of my best friends, and he's also my little brother. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show the one and only Mr. Ethan Gallagher.
Good morning, y'all. This is pretty insane. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Very happy to have you. Oh, all right. Go ahead, Josh. Joshua, if you give a little bit of an idea about what we're also going to be covering overall throughout, just a little. So for the people, there's a cliffhanger. So check out the episode on YouTube and Rumble, of course. So they have a better idea about what's the benefit of jumping off of our live stuff and getting onto our full episode.
So today we're going to have Ethan discuss the time he spent in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, kind of what led him from this middle-class boy that I grew up with in my house, and how he transitioned from being in that environment to going all the way to working for the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., a current resident of Washington, D.C., and how that ultimately led him to work for one of the most controversial presidencies in the United States, whether that's a negative or positive, but how he was able to make that journey, and also some of the things that our country's struggling with at the moment, especially like political polarization, transparency of the government, the political unrest, you could say, and then the GOP party, and how he kind of was able to see all that transform in front of his eyes, and also, work and travel the country. And Ethan, you went to 35 states, right?
Yeah. The 35 states for towns you've probably never heard of, but some trips and some people I'll never forget. The hardworking folks of America, for sure.
Yeah. So just all types of information. We're really gonna dive in. And Ethan, I really want to hear your story. Like, tell me how, growing up, you were into acting. You were great at acting. Acting is kind of, I feel like, something you really wanted to go to, but you ended up going to the University of Georgia. And just tell me how that happened. Tell me how you got to that point.
Yeah. So, when I started at UGA, we were in the second year of Obama's second presidency. And, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And, as we got closer and closer to 2016, I watched the Republican primary, and I kind of saw the political establishment, I saw the cracks of it. But what really inspired me to, try to go and break into politics myself was kind of just the vitriol that was shown towards, anyone who didn't really conform with just the mainstream liberal approach of looking at the world. I'm not talking about, I didn't like that you couldn't be in a classroom and, espouse something pretty extreme. I just mean that there was no room for thought, no room for the conversation. So in 2016, I watched our current congressman for Georgia's 3rd district, where Josh and I are from. He was elected to the House of Representatives. And so I added on political science as a second major. I was international affairs before because I was big in foreign language, but I really dove into the study of political parties, our system of government, constitutional law, knocked so much stuff out within those last 2 years, and then simply applied on a website to intern with the House of Representatives, and got accepted. And, right after I graduated, I packed up 3 suitcases and got a sublease in a very, very expensive Washington, D.C., and started what would be the greatest 4-year adventure of my life on the floor of an apartment in a city where I didn't know anyone. So that summer was pretty transformative, and it was pretty exciting, right? Because we had a Republican trifecta. You had Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House. You had Mitch McConnell, kind of the gatekeeper of the Senate, and then you had, you had President Trump. And no matter what you could say, there was excitement on both sides in that summer. We didn't really know, where things were going to go, but you could feel it. It was kind of palpable in D.C. It was a very exciting time to be a Republican and to be a conservative. My internship was 3 months, so that was June through about August of 2017, and I just kind of hit the ground running with networking. I said, this is where I want to be. I got to make this work, and I was able to get on with our former senator David Perdue to help out with some of his day-to-day operations, and that like anything else in Washington, that opened another door a year and a half probably down the road from there, where I got an offer to come and join the Trump administration to serve as a confidential assistant in rural development. And then confidential assistant is kind of an archaic term that is a blanket executive or administrative assistant. And we just had so much coming down the pike from the President Trump's task force on agriculture and rural prosperity. We had so many items that our policy staff were overwhelmed, and I was, able. I had worked under great leaders. I want to get this out of the way and say that my experience at USDA wouldn't be what it was if we didn't have the the leadership team and the senior level appointees that oversaw me. It was because of them. So took on the role of policy advisor, helped launch the Reconnect broadband program. It was a flagship broadband program. It was President Trump's, probably in my opinion, one of President Trump's greatest achievements, and Secretary Perdue's greatest achievements as well. Traveled the country, helping bridge the digital divide. And in those travels, the lack of understanding in a place like Washington of what it's really like, out in the country, regardless of partisan politics, I really came to understand that. And so that's why I'm excited to be here today and kind of share, the things from my view and things from my experience, and hopefully it becomes a larger conversation. It helps us be more understanding of the folks who put food on our table and keep the lights on.
Absolutely. And just through your experience, you really opened my eyes to, like, anytime I would travel to a rural town during that 4 years, I would kind of be more observant of the economy in that small town. And I think you also brought up a good point, that to make sure that everyone, especially in those rural communities, which is most of the time more conservative, that their voice is heard too. And the fact that the U.S. Department of agriculture as a whole is probably one of the most uncontroversial departments of the government. Without agriculture, we couldn't have settlements. I mean, before we were able to farm and grow our own food, we were just hunter-gatherers. We were just nomadic. We would move from space to space to space to space. So as far as keeping an economy, keeping a nation afloat, agriculture is something that is of the utmost importance, if not the most important. And it's awesome that we had someone who went out of their way, chose to go and serve this country through policy and through government, and was able to keep those rural communities, those farming communities that, like you said, feed us. Some millennials might think that Publix just has a big barn back there and they just bring all the food out, but someone's got to grow that food. Someone's got to transport that food so we can buy that food. So thank you for your service. Thank you for what you did, Ethan. And yeah, it's amazing. It was, and what's the element like? Like, when you go to work, we all have those days where I'm just like, I don't really want to go to work today. What's the aura, I guess I would say, the energy when you are actually working, not only in policy and government, but during administration like the Trump administration?
Yeah, it really, I mean, that's a great question. It really depended on the day. I think to your point, looking at the Trump administration from a bird's eye view, USDA kind of enjoyed, pretty much a very smooth ride in accomplishing the agriculture, energy, and rural development goals of the administration. We kept very, very busy, and we got a lot of funding and a lot of community engagement out the door, and some organizational restructuring of how the department works. So in some of the most chaotic days, we were so busy focusing on the next big chunk that we had to look up and see what was happening. I know that there were a few days where CNN was rolling something on the news about pick a scandal that they chose to focus on, and friends would text me I've got friends in New York, friends in Georgia, text me saying, "Oh my goodness, what's the temperature like in DC today?" I'm like, I'm working. Like we didn't really give into the noise. So, but then, on the other hand, you never forgot the gravity of what you were doing, because we did report to the White House. We went through a White House liaison, but we were there. So through the government shutdown, through the first impeachment, that all certainly loomed over us, and it wasn't intimidating, but for me it was more so very humbling of being 20, 23, 24 years old, and watched it, and just sitting in the seat I sat in, the office right on the National Mall. And from that office, I kind of watched DC evolve, and as we've seen in the last year and a half or so, it evolved a lot quicker than I think we'd realize.
Yeah,
I'd like to throw in there a little something too, Ethan and Joshua, both of you. For me, I sit back and I'm not educated by the media, by the news necessarily, at least not in the last 3 years, but for a lot of us, it's just we get so busy in our day-to-day life, or real, like whatever it is that we get involved in, and we don't understand the infrastructure necessary for us to have that life. Like Josh was saying, as far as the food goes, and actually how important it is that we actually have one of the most non-inflammatory government agencies that is it's kind of taken for granted by the average person, not realizing what that your guys' job was and is. So I sit back and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't realize that the states run like a business until Trump got in office. Never thought about the way that the actual states run, what the governor's real responsibilities are. And then you get further down that line and you realize that there's other departments and what their jobs are, the intricate details of that. So what's really exciting for me is I don't have any of that clarity. I'm such an incredible layperson in this. So having you on here and you're like, okay, well, this is what I've gone through. One, it's the humble upcoming, the upbringing that you came through into where you are now. You're still a fairly young guy, but you're well accomplished in your years, and you're doing something that so few people would actually give much value for. If anything, they may even diminish it because it was under Bad Orange Man. So what I really appreciate is, one, sharing this with us, and the other is throwing it out there so that, I'm not a mannequin in the background. So people that are like, I like hearing Chad talk. I'm not talking for a reason, because I'm excited to hear what Ethan has to say. But I wanted to throw that out there because that's me. I'm absolutely just a dullard in this. And it's fascinating to see what your real experience has been. So, but now that I threw my little piece in there so I can satisfy the other side that's like, why is Chad quiet? Oh, all right. Sorry for the interruption there, but point being is that I'm really excited to have you here, and I've got a lot of questions. And if you see me fidgeting in the background, it's because I'm practicing patience.
I know.
All right.
So kind of as a segue, Ethan, you talk about your travels across the country, especially in the more rural areas. We kind of have stigmas now. I think rural, and the first thing that pops in mind is more conservative, right? And I think it's mostly based on this era of political polarization that we're living in. And as far as the causes go, like whenever I think about political polarization, I think about the 1996 GOP National Convention, when Robert Dole referred to Bill Clinton as, he is my opponent and he is not my enemy. And I feel like that was kind of the last time, or at least maybe a catalyst point in our history, where we started to push away from political or different political ideologies being more so different opinions, and now we're moving into this area where it's actually more maybe political identitivism, right? And we're further moving away from each other as far as discussion goes. So what do you think? What did you see on your travels when you were around the country as far as political polarization in these maybe rural areas? And what do you think are some possible causes to this current situation that we find ourselves in as a country?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving the nod to the days of, Bob Dole. I think we certainly, in terms of a national temperature and, how our institutions work, or for lack of a better word, sometimes don't. Long gone are the days of, John McCain. We've moved away from that. My travel experiences really showed that there was just such a stark difference in opportunities. When you're out in rural communities, working on, some of the infrastructure and rural economic development, programs we worked on, you kind of noticed that, there was still a spread, an even spread of, Democrats and Republicans, throughout these communities. I think where the major differences were in the media, and some of the ways that local media would cover and not cover, a certain project we were funding, or sending someone out there. I think when you're talking about, the divide between rural and urban, I think it's a lack of education. I think it's that lack of knowing, for an example, when coronavirus first hit and almost every grocery store was out of toilet paper, a lot of people wanted to blame the president and blame Congress. But a lot of people probably don't understand that behind the scenes, you had stakeholders from, the producer, the distributor, and also from the USDA side, who were working with those folks in those rural communities to find some exemptions to existing regulations, to move through our supply chain and get food back on the shelves and get toilet paper back on the shelves. When we're talking about polarization on a national scale, I think a lot of it really is attributed to a profit-driven media. Long gone are the days of the Walter Cronkites, who just told you what was happening, generally well respected by everyone. And now the profit-driven media has kind of seen that, we're more profitable if we're divided into camps. We're more profitable if we're divided into camps, and maybe we're angry. It certainly started in the 90s with conservative media, and then as they kind of dominated the ratings and really started to get major advertisers and make money off of it, the left picked up and did the same thing. And that's what's difficult, because if you have money in the media and money in the main source of information for people, regardless of where they live, it's going to increase a sense of tribalism, because there's never a fair depiction of what a rural person is. Now you just see, you saw some of the, there were some really disheartening things that were said about, Florida and Texas recently. Florida, throughout any hurricane that hit in the last 4 years, and Texas when this winter storm hit. You saw people on Facebook saying that's what they get for, that's what they get for voting red. It's kind of, it's crap. It's crap. First of all, what are you doing? Get a job. You're wishing people on Facebook to succumb to a natural disaster because the president's kind of mean. You don't like that? Okay. But that's indicative of the larger issue, right? That we are so pulled apart, and we're so, willing to be either on team A or team B, that we forgot that we're all Americans, but also that we both serve different purposes. Rural communities are the backbone of this nation, and unfortunately they still have a lot of needs. You have the brain drain, you have young people who grow up in these towns who, because there's no jobs and there's no place for them to continue their education, and maybe there's a lack of resources for them to want to raise a family there, they leave and they go to the cities. I would encourage everyone to go to the Economic Research Service by USDA if you're interested. They do a Rural America at a Glance, and it really shows the decline in demographics and the decline in economic growth that these communities have seen over the last 10 years, you look at that, there's no wonder why people in rural communities are so angry. And it also should be frustrating, that we have these disparities happen, between our rural communities, and also, the same disparities that exist in our, in our major cities. We have them, and then, what is our government busy arguing about? It really brings things into perspective if you kind of understand some of that information, understand what it's like on the ground. And so that happened to me when I was on the ground traveling and thinking about political polarization and thinking about how things were depicted, is that no one knows until you get out there and do it. And I think people should maybe hold their tongue before they want to, slander slander rural communities, because they're some of the most hardworking, God-loving, people, and it's really frustrating to see how we got here. But I think the media has a lot. I think the media has a lot to do with it.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just get Chad's opinion. I mean, the media, especially, it's when I went to go visit my family in Thanksgiving in Georgia, their like political commercials were still going on, and it was funny to kind of see the difference between living in Florida and how our commercials were so much different compared to other states, and how different states get different information, and we're all kind of bouncing around this information wave that Chad and I have talked about a lot. What do you think, Chad? I mean, what are some possible causes that you could see to political polarization? Maybe not even just in Florida, but touched on, Ethan, about rural America and across the United States.
Well, I think a lot of it. So right now we have this romantic idea of open-mindedness, the trait openness in the Big Five. We have such a romantic idea that's part of like one of the very strong indicators of somebody who's on the left is typically going to be higher in trait openness, lower in conscientiousness most of the time, which is more of a conservative value, is conscientiousness. We're so tied up in this tribalism of what's next. So the progressives hang on to the idea of openness and exploit people's desires to make things better than they currently are. And then the conscientious individual has this is traditional value. This is what we've used to be successful. The media does not support that as much right now. It's more of the get rich quick concept and scheme that's being produced to draw people more towards the left, not so much the right. So what happens with that is we trickle down through the process of what's necessary for a nation to survive. Is we have the issue where rural America, which is predominantly conservative, more red than blue, they're necessary for us to survive. But what do we do in the sense that how are we polarized by predominantly the media? Because that's what's in the house. That's in almost everyone's home. They're highlighting all these values about things that we are supposed to care about, not things that we really need to, like as if you would find on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the safety security element is at the bottom, but it's the base. And if you don't have that accomplished or valued, you start to fall apart at the top because your base is fractured. And that's what I see is that, Ethan's standing up for the base of what we need as a nation. If we send that off and give somebody else the opportunity to provide that for us, no matter how rich and powerful we become, we're dependent on them. No matter if we feel like we're sitting at the table and we're the power player, as soon as they take that away from us, we have deconditioned ourselves for being able to protect and survive. If we reduce our infrastructure, we're in a pretty undesirable place. Bill Gates is he's become one of the biggest landowners in America, and now he's pushing synthetic beef. What's going to happen if he decides to finally say, you know what? I'm not going to have any of this land available for cattle and or any livestock. You guys are going to do as I say, because you're going to do it out of desperation. So I see that we're in this divide. The media could be the absolute enemy of everyone, but it doesn't have to be that they're attached to somebody else's agenda other than their own, because they just want ratings. There's very little integrity anymore in that. So what I see is that we have this division. You have these open-minded individuals, these revolutionary thinkers. They're predominantly in those urban areas, or they're highlighted by, big tech. And we've got Silicon Valley, that kind of thing, the promised land for the open-minded people. And then you've got the people that want to just get to work, and they're being treated as if they're sanitation workers, even though sanitation workers are absolutely necessary, because without them, doctors wouldn't be very effective either. So as far as all that goes, that's my position so far. But what's coming to me is we're giving too much of what we need to survive as a nation away, and we're doing it by making it less important. And as it becomes less important, it's more likely we're going to put it offshores. So, but then again, like I said, I'm a dollar in this. I'm just highly curious and more interested in what Ethan has to say than in myself. So,
yeah, I like that bit you said about technology, because for me, I feel like maybe something that's a little bit more under the rug, so to speak, as far as why political polarization. And for those listening, political polarization is kind of a scary term. To kind of really break it down, it just means more so, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ethan, but the more radical side of each party kind of comes to fruition or rises to the top, so to speak, than the more moderate views. And I feel like part of that has to do with the rise in technology in our society, and how as much of a blessing as it is, it can actually be a detriment, especially in face-to-face communication. And it kind of, we push away from talking about these type of subjects, especially face-to-face and in a physical environment. And we move to this social media, almost the mindset of, you can almost get away with it, I guess you would say. I'm allowed to really speak my mind and maybe not say something I would say in person, but I'll post it on social media. And that kind of almost pushes our psyche more so away from this kind of discussion, especially in a physical environment, and which leads to unrest and people getting emotional because they're not used to talking to the subject. So I know, Ethan, you've seen a lot in that DC. There's a lot of protesting going on. I don't think we protest enough, so I'm not against protesting, but I'm sure you saw some of that lack of communication, partially due to technology in our country.
Yeah, I think, we talked about technology and we talked about information, and I think, that's one of the underlying, issues in terms of not polarization within our institutions. You have polarization within the institutions that can be seen as, votes are increasingly more and more party line, and it's almost like clockwork now, that, when party switches, both parties know very well how to be an opposing minority party with no room for the middle ground. The way that comes to fruition within the populace is through social media. Especially now when some people are still in their homes, lacking that social interaction. Home taking care of their kids. Through the pandemic or whatever. Everyone is really bold behind their keyboard. Everyone's a great keyboard warrior, but it's not lost on me that we're losing that ability to talk to people on the other side. When I moved to DC, I understood that my strength was that I still recognize that I have Democrat colleagues, Democrat neighbors, Democrat friends. We all want the same thing. We just have completely different ways of getting there in some respects, but I've always prided myself in having, that ability to reach across the aisle and just have those conversations. The issue with people who aren't maybe as involved in the system is that bad information spreads quicker than good information on something like Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms. You saw this a lot through the election. People would make memes that were inherently false. And they were flying around. Bad information spread super quick. And so, if you have people believing, and this happens on both sides, if you have people believing lies, and they think that they are being lied to, people just get angrier and angrier and angrier. And then, it's just our instincts kick in. So you're in fight or flight mode all the time, and no conversations, no battles that were worth winning within the American system were won on Twitter. It's pointless, pointless banter that really takes us farther and farther from what the purpose of our government was to be. And finding compromise, all pursuing the same goals. We're not there anymore. I mean, now you're seeing elected officials engaging in these Twitter battles. And you know what? Honestly, I'm just going to say it's not your elected official. If you think your elected official is sending out zany tweets, it's their staffer, and their staffer is probably 22 years old. So digest that and realize that you're not only being played by people spreading lies on Twitter, you're getting played by a 21-year-old staffer who just finished up their 3rd semester at Brown. So just kind of take a minute there. But that's a very very dense issue, and I think that does bleed into you had these members of Congress. They understand how what the temperature is, and they understand that, wait a minute, I can appeal to this temperature to continue to be elected. And the way that kind of evolves and becomes a larger problem for the society is when you have all these party line votes. You have absolutely no room for compromise. And then our institutions become, we do whatever we want when we're in power, and you do whatever you want when you're in power. And who loses? Us. I think the best way to describe that is, or the best way to understand that is, after Harry Reid completely went nuclear on the filibuster to confirm certain appointees and judges. I mean, it kind of became a free-for-all. And the fact that Supreme Court nominees who are supposed to be the arbiters of the Constitution and make sure that policies are delivered fairly and make sure that our constitutional values are upheld, the fact that those nominations, which used to be unanimous, are now sensationalized political theater that are, quite frankly, ugly. It's ugly to watch. That's a sign that we're headed somewhere really, really bad, and headed somewhere really, really bad where the people who are kind of pulling the strings in the media and on both sides of the aisle, they understand that there is a fired up public online who's ready to see it and who is ready to join either camp, and that system just continues to build on itself, and I think we're going to have a lot of issues.
I mean, I completely agree, and I think it's funny how Ethan brought up social media there, and kind of a little bit of our next topic. So I hate to tell our Facebook viewers, but we're now going to be transitioning over to our normal channel. Remember, it is Waking the People at YouTube and Rumble, right? Rumble, I think it took a bit of a stumble not too long ago, but it's back online, baby. It's still going. So if you want to hear the rest of our topic, this next topic, it's very interesting. Ethan's already kind of hinting to it. Transparency in the government, how that affects our lives. So Chad, tell our loyal Facebook listeners that we are now going to transition over. And if you want to see the rest, just come follow us.
Welcome back, all you fantastic patriots. Now that we've ended our intermission, although in your world watching this video, it was but a second. In our world, we've got all of the housekeeping issues, including restroom breaks, taken care of. So welcome back, and let's get back into it, man. Really, just we have 2 more great subjects we want to get into here with Ethan.
Yeah, we left off. Ethan was really talking about the transparency in our government today, whether that be through the access we have to social media, where candidates are tweeting, just giving a little bit more insight than we're used to. Again, maybe transparency in government's kind of a new term. Just think of it as our ability to see through the government more so now than we have in the past, and also how it exposes more corruption, or it kind of heightens the media's role to be a watchdog, in a sense, to look out for those kind of corruption. So why do you think nowadays that we have so much more transparency and we hold these candidates much more responsible than we did in the past, and how maybe that kind of translates into not really understanding what type of democracy that we have?
Yeah, I certainly, one thing that I've noticed, and this is, I'm certainly too young to have experienced the full difference between what it was like, let's say, in like the Newt Gingrich days versus now. But I think one of the key factors in this evolution, in the way constituents see their government, has been social media. It translates with what we were talking about earlier, but there's so many different ways for constituents to access their members now that it's kind of shifted operations away from a representative democracy to you'll see it on both sides of the aisle, either in tweets, tweets, letters, or in my case, having been a congressional intern, answering phone calls. People say, you work for me, and that is true. Your elected officials, are there to represent you. One of the things that I think we have to be careful about, though, where I think that this transparency is actually this level of transparency to where there's always a microscope in an age of polarization where an act of bipartisanship can be seen as betrayal. I think it's having a negative. I think it's having a negative effect on what our representative democracy really should be. And I think you can kind of see it in the way the State of the Union is a great example. Even though the State of the Union is kind of a formality, it used to just be a speech that was sent up to the Hill, but now in the age of everything, political theater is now like the Super Bowl. It's become a massive partisan political activity, and that has bled into not everyone. I think it depends on which committee or which chamber of Congress you're looking at. We're losing a lot of the information that we need from these hearings, that you think transparency, and we're losing that information, but we're getting the temperature. Think about, if you looked at, any major congressional oversight hearing. I think when I first realized that this was an issue was, after watching the hours and hours of the Benghazi House Oversight hearing with then Chairman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina. He left that hearing and he was asked by a reporter, what new piece of information did you learn from that hearing? And he couldn't answer the question. So think about that on like a larger scale, and what that does to the American public, where they see their people being they see their representatives super fired up, and depending on the topic, maybe they should be. But I think what we're really lacking from that is the information. So we have transparency, and that there's always a microscope on our government, but we're lacking that information that helps people to understand. And you have to look no further than the recent debates on bills. A lot of these COVID stimulus packages have had a lot of pork in them, a lot of things that are unrelated to the cause. But the thing is, that has been business as usual in Washington for a very long time. And not that all of those are bad. Sometimes if you have an opportunity to get something done and it benefits your constituents, I think you should do it. But we're experiencing now, this transparency has both deprived us of information, made us a little bit more upset and fired up, but also it's revealed that our institutions are very, very, very complex. And it's sometimes very, very hard to get things done because the founders wanted it to be that way. They wanted things to be stable. They wanted checks and balances. But if you have that system, but you don't have the information, I think people just get increasingly frustrated that their government's not doing anything because they don't understand how it works. And when you get people, that frustrated that their tax dollars are going, are going to this system, and they see it all happening, but they don't know what they're getting out of it, and they don't know what they're looking at because there's not the information. There's almost not a disclaimer between this is what a budget reconciliation bill is. This is what the appropriations process is. This is what nominees. This is the Senate nomination process. You have best example. All right, I'm kind of spiraling out here, but the best example is Chairman Ajit Pai, former chairman, I don't think he's there anymore, of the FCC. I was an intern during the net neutrality fiasco, And there is no better personification of how ridiculous some of this gets than that situation. You had some people on the left tweeting that if net neutrality is repealed, people will die. And you had people calling and attacking, FCC Chairman Pai for something that they had no idea what it meant. They got talking points in the spam inbox of their email. They're super fired up and they're blaming it all on President Trump. But what they don't realize is that the FCC chairman is a 5-year appointment that President Obama had just completed. Our government structure where there are some appointments. I mean, the FAA administrator, the FCC commissioner, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, a lot of these independent agencies have opposing political cycles to kind of appointment cycles, I should say, to kind of support our continuity of government. So that's one very niche example of just a way the government works that a lot of people didn't know. I remember I was 22 and I was like, wait a minute. Oh, he's not a Trump appointee. President Obama appointed him. Interesting. And also the FCC, this is how the FCC works. Not every person is going to follow through and do their research. So if you have this hyper focus and you have this temperature, you're going to have people really, really pissed off and confused. And that breaks our system from the electorate up. So I think we've definitely got some issues to work out there.
And to add into that too, it does seem like there's a lot of urgency to increase low information voters by disinformation. Confuse them, get them to where they can't really figure out what's true, what isn't, and then we're just going to inundate them with the crap in their inbox. This is your political party divide information of the day. You're red, take this email. You're blue, take this email. So
I am having some power problem, boys. So y'all keep going. My charger's not working.
All right, you got it, my man. But I do see that's low information voters are what's preventing us from being able to get to the point where we're like, okay, well, that's actually what's happening. I had no idea. By the way, I'm not claiming that I'm a high information voter. I'm an informed voter. I'm in the middle somewhere. And I'm spending a daily basis to try to become more and more informed. And then it's like these booby traps, right? You have like, okay, well, there's obvious disinformation. And then you have the fear of following suit with something that may be a conspiracy theory or labeled as such. So now that I've kind of put us on our own little tangent, or at least myself on my own little tangent, getting back to you on the position that the position of the appointee, it's a 5-year appointment. I had no idea about that. That's absolutely fascinating, is how many people, as soon as Trump took office, thought that everything was purged and Trump was it, and then it was like, okay, well, now you got your ultimate whipping boy, because that's how a lot of his presidency is like, no matter what it was, like I stepped in a pile of dog crap today. That's Trump's fault, man. And it just to me is the
there was definitely an anti-government sentiment from the left that has also been existing on the right. If you look at the early Tea Party days, where there are angry people who don't understand how their government works, and they're directing all of their frustrations at everything government instead of taking the time to kind of research research how the government works and why it works the way that it does. But honestly, also, it's sometimes not the responsibility of the constituent. The constituent should respect, getting the full picture. It should expect getting the full picture from their elected officials. But sometimes it's not politically expedient. There are two things that are limited in Washington: time and money. Sometimes it's not politically expedient for them to educate them if how they present something is going to benefit them in an election. And for some of these, folks, it's they're in leadership. They're focused on whatever their pet project or their pet issue area. They don't have the time to do that. But unfortunately, that's at the disadvantage to the voter and to the constituent. some you know, some do a better job than others. You know, some offices have really, you know, understood that, you know, transparency has become the name of the game. And you know, I personally think more, you know, transparency in government to reveal how our money is spent, and how we're fighting corruption, and certainly you know, how the reality behind where we're sending our troops. I highly value that. But I think if you're, you know, too much exposure, I think can be a bad thing. You know, certainly I've heard anecdotal stories. You know, I'm in grad school right now. I'm finishing up at Johns Hopkins here in DC. And, you know, some of my professors have been here longer than I've been alive. And, you know, they used to talk about the days when, you know, there weren't cameras on in hearings. And that was where a lot of the bipartisan work of getting down to the nitty-gritty of policy and finding bipartisan solutions, that's where that took place. But when you've got a media that makes money off of sensationalizing, you know, what are very basic functions and very basic stances of policy, and you've got an electorate that's, you know, glued to that, you know, you run the risk of you know, being seen as a traitor. I think one of the finest examples of that was during the Supreme Court confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett. You know, she was a conservative judge, and, you know, we had just the previous nomination hearings for a Supreme Court seat were pretty contentious for the entire country, for Justice Brett Kavanaugh, for, you know, whichever side of it you were on. You know, Chairman Lindsey Graham ran that hearing in a very respectable way. I thought the temperature was much lower. I thought it was informative. If you haven't watched it, it explains a lot about constitutional law and a textualist approach to the Constitution. But at the end of that hearing, you know, Ranking Member Dianne Feinstein of California gave Lindsey Graham a hug. Just, you know, we're coworkers. Hey, that was a great hearing. You know, tap it out. Within less than a day, you know, I'm walking to the grocery store and I see, you know, plastered to telephone poles, a picture of Dianne Feinstein, who's been a leading progressive in the Democratic caucus for a long time. She certainly represents the old guard of Democrats compared to some of the newer ones, but she's been there, you know, longer than many of Democratic voters have been voting Democrat, and she's being painted as a traitor. You know, and that is the risk that our members of Congress and our senators run with approaching bipartisanship. And in a highly polarized environment, if you're trying to keep your seat, you're just going to avoid doing that altogether. And so that's kind of how the two things spiral and kind of weaken the relationship we have with each other, and also weaken the relationship that our parties have to work together to accomplish shared goals. So,
yeah, there's something that really kind of frustrates me is we want to have so much autonomy in ourselves. We want to be able to be however we want to be, forgive when we need to forgive, and be just a normal human being that can change our position and have a new life if we decide that what we've lived up to that point hasn't rewarded us with the goal that we really wanted. But we put people in positions like that, right, where we have, you know, these two individuals interacting opposite sides of the aisle, and then all of a sudden you're chastised, you're abused, because how dare you actually give an acknowledgement to somebody else over them doing a good job? You know, they're the enemy. Oh, and it makes this continuous divide that our enemy is other Americans, now, whether they're elected or not. And that is such a horrible place to be. Like, what keeps coming to my mind is Rome is burning. Oh, and this is what happened in Rome's scenario too. Now, they just got so divided as a nation. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, but it really does. It gets to that. It offers credence to this division. Oh.
And I want to add too, there's an opportunity, you know, that there is opportunity and plenty of reason to be hopeful too, because, you know, I would definitely say I am, you know, more of a moderate former establishment Republican. You know, I definitely was. And, you know, Josh remembers I was the only 8th grader at Booth Middle School in Peachtree City, Georgia. bopping to school with a McCain and Palin shirt on in 2008, just kind of political from the get-go. I put a sign in the yard. I probably didn't even know, I probably didn't even understand how the government worked at that point in time, but I was so proud. I've come from those days. Living in DC, some of my Democratic friends are some of the smartest and most passionate people I know. And if I grow up to join the ranks of an elected body on the local, state, or federal level, I kind of want to continue, how bipartisan I try to keep my views and my approach. I want to kind of be the change maker there to kind of get us back, because a lot of, and I'm not the only staffer who feels that way. I think, there is a code of silence for currently, elected staffers, because you want, it's the member's office, right? They're elected, but throughout some of the more tumultuous policy debates and political events of the day, you have staffers on the other side who, when the swords are put down, after floor debate, we all go get drinks together. We all have dinner. We all we help each other move. We console each other. And that's a spirit that kind of gives me a little bit of hope, as frustrating as some of these topics and discussions can be, is that sense of bipartisanship is there, and it just comes with a shared understanding and a shared experience of being an underpaid staffer on Capitol Hill, and through probably one of the most exciting being a nice word, periods in American history. If there's only a way we could bottle that up and be the example and kind of send that out, I think things would be better. But also, we do exist in a world that is very, very, very different from the real trials and tribulations of those, living throughout the country, whether it be in an inner city or in a rural community. We're in a time of crisis on multiple fronts. So, it's easier to be scared and angry and pull further into your camp than it is to kind of reach across the aisle there.
No, I think that you're right now illuminating that there are plenty of people that are trying to bring it back to civility. And by this, you're humanizing the process. So joining us on the show is absolutely exciting to me individually, to think that, at 41 years old, I am I was losing hope for what we could create for the future, as of seeing things as if it's, the wrong people have the steering wheel. And by you saying that actually invigorates me that, there's a high possibility we may be able to restore civility. No, thank you for that, for sharing that, and also for being who you are in this process. Now, Joshua.
Yeah, it's funny how, especially today, I think going back to what we talked about on Facebook Live, as far as polarization goes, right now in this pay-per-click world that we live in, where views equal cash, the people holding the mic, so to speak, right now are the more radicals, right? And whether that be, the left or the right. Also, I think a contributing factor to this is that we as in the American people have been force-fed this very progressive agenda for years, as far as the media goes, and now we're pushing toward this. I think it all led up to Trump, in the sense that people were just kind of sick of getting told what is okay and what's not, and through that Trump explosion, which is going to be a catalyst into our next topic, through that Trump explosion, we kind of had, so to speak, two people holding the mic now, and it may be the right and it's need to stay relevant, because as we know now, like, hate speech can be defined as many things. It can be defined as different opinions, and I feel like that the GOP needed Trump at the time, and now we're moving into this era of, I think there's definitely some party restructuring going on in the GOP, and as far as its impacts go, whether they're good or bad, I guess it'll remain to be seen. I think that in the long run, it's actually going to be a good thing. In the short run, it could be a little bit of a problem. But and it just goes to say, I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. But even tomorrow, tomorrow's the Apex convention, and Trump he's the closing speaker. He speaks at 3:30 tomorrow. So he's still heavily involved in the Republican Party. So there's this battle of past Republicans who are more maybe in the moderate lines, or at least in some way, and the more fast-moving Republicans that are more on the Trump side. So where do you see this going, Ethan, as far as our Republican Party? Is it going to be a good thing, short thing? What do you think some possible outcomes could be?
Yeah, I think we have to, I think we have to watch, right? We kind of have to stay tuned and see what happens. Party realignments, have been studied in political science for a very long time, and that's when you have a noticeable shift in the electorate that completely, kind of flips some party ideologies. And I think the best example that's been used is the election of 1968 and the complete flip of the South from Democrats to the Republicans as we know it, and kind of that conservative base growing and picking up speed through the Reagan eras. And then from the period of 1994 to 2004, you had 20 elections that had, Republicans kind of winning. You saw, and you saw in 2008, there was President Barack Obama, ran as what at that point was a pretty progressive, during one of the worst economic downturns, if not the worst, in my opinion, in American history. He ran as a progressive, but that one progressive blip didn't change the fact that in 2010. The Democratic Party was dealt a 63-seat loss in the House, the largest loss of seats since 1948. And then you had the kind of the Tea Party sweep of the Senate in 2014, and then certainly that that blowout in 2016, blowout more so on the House side. I think the presidential election in 2016 was kind of sensationalized because it was a complete outsider winning against a very, very established politician. But that election was still very close. It was decided on the margins of some blue collar voters in a few key states. But in terms of when you're talking about party realignment, you'd ask, okay, so in 2016, then does this signal that the GOP is kind of heading towards a more Trump wing of the party? And I think it's still too soon to know. I think it can go one of two ways. In 2022, it's going to, we're going to have to focus on a few key races and see, if President Trump and, now private citizen, chooses to, put up a few primary opponents to people, that he wants. If those primary opponents win, in safe Republican districts, if they win in safe Republican districts and then they win the general and they hold on, then that's maybe a signal that 2016 was the start of a realignment. In my opinion, I think it's more of a recalibration. The Republican Party, the only thing new that was brought to the table with President Trump was he picked up on the topic that select Republican strategists have been, pointing to address just based on polling among Republican voters. He picked up immigration, and certainly he added some maybe inflammatory rhetoric around it, but he spoke to that. And so finally, you had Republican voters seeing that there's someone who is concerned about the same issue they're concerned about. And then also what you're saying, Josh, he completely bucked the establishment in terms of, political correctness and kind of this policing of the culture that we've just kind of seen over the years. So he represents that. But also, he only made it through one term. So I think what we have to watch to see if, Trump has permanently changed the GOP is certainly the 2022 midterms. Traditionally, the party in power loses in the midterms. So we saw that in 2018 with the Democrats taking back control of the House and then Speaker Nancy Pelosi taking over. And then, this election, we got, I think the Republicans, got the margin of leadership down to a few votes, and it's even tighter in a few seats, and it's even tighter in the Senate. So that's 2022. You have to look at those primaries. And then in 2024, if there is a Trump-esque candidate who, eventually gets put on the top of the ticket, that would signal a significant change and maybe a realignment of the Republican Party. But it's too soon to tell. I think what you're seeing right now is there are two competing camps. You kind of have like the establishment once again. You kind of have the establishment like Liz Cheney's versus versus the Matt Gaetz and the more I don't like the term far right, but they're certainly a lot further right than the establishment are. Those wings are going to compete. The political arms, so the non-elected arms of those wings, are going to be fighting it in the trenches in the midterms, and then certainly the next presidential and general election. And that's where we'll get a greater sense of was there a broader ideological shift. That's what matters, is if there was an ideological shift. And quite frankly, while we may see some success of Trump-backed candidates in the midterms and in the next presidential, I don't see a broad enough change in policy. I don't see enough flips for it to really signal a party realignment. I mean, in 2016, compared to 2016 and 2020, the GOP party platform was a copy and paste job. Quite literally, it was a copy and paste job. Like, some of the dates weren't updated. Like, so you don't. The only thing that you have that was different, was the way President Trump was able to market conservative politics in a way that hadn't been done before. And I don't know if that's going to, I don't know if that's an indicator of some realignment undercurrent within the electorate that's going to permanently impact the course of the GOP and the course of conservative politics in the future. It's too soon to tell. But I would predict it's not a realignment, but I think it's a recalibration and an approach, a new approach to how conservatives view the world and want their policies to be passed. But I do want to say, while we're talking about that, I've lived in DC for 4 years. Like I said, I've got friends who work on Capitol Hill. January 6th was a very, very shameful day. And I just want to come out and, if you're a part of the conservative movement, you need to be parts of what we're doing right now, having the conversations, approaching these topics, with sincerity and with respect. I think you shouldn't, the temperature is too high. So like we've talked in previous topics, I hope we kind of reach a sense of common ground and a sense of lower temperature where we can, without the risk of, harm to the nation, we can, discuss, hey, is this a new conservative movement, and kind of keep us away from those extremes.
I mean, it's like Trump is like. Yeah.
Do you have your phone on by chance?
Do I? No, I'm good now. Sorry about that, folks. Some technical difficulties over here at Tesla. We're getting it together. That like Trump, like, to me, Trump he was like the king of those like car salesmen. Like, when you go to like a car salesman, or you go to like any hardcore sale position, like he's a master communicator. He really is. And he knows what buttons that we want pulled. Like Ethan, for example, like the political correctness that we live in today is almost like unbearing. Like anytime you say something, you have to go back and like be politically correct and make sure you reiterate your position. But like, I just remember a sign of him pointing at a sign that said "Merry Christmas." I think I sent it to Ethan, and like he was all about like, if you want to say something, like you can say it, and it may not everyone might not like it, and it may be either disrespectful in some senses or controversial. But he really brought back that love for conservative values to at least be talked about openly, and not so much be the silent majority that we were kind of used to for quite some time, especially in a very progressive world that we live in.
Nice. I know that we're running. We're going to have to actually let Ethan go here in just a few minutes to respect his time, but there's a lot that I want to get into, but for time's sake, it's not, really feasible, and still, not to have everybody feel like things are being rushed. But I do want to say that it's been a really interesting, eye-opening conversation. like I'd mentioned before, as far as understanding how even the governor runs a state prior to Trump was kind of a blind spot to me. Now I understand it's run like a business and there's a budget to balance and there's a lot of actions that are necessary that fall on that person's shoulders. This has been really illuminating for me to hear a little bit more, at least for the overview experience for you, Ethan, being in DC and a part of this. Oh, I would love to in the future dig a little bit deeper into the FDA's responsibilities that we as a citizen may not realize. And more obviously on updates on what you're going through as we continue this transition into the new administration. But as far as that goes, I'm greatly honored that you joined us. And I'm also like over here going, all right, Chad, pace yourself. There's a lot. Don't overwhelm anybody with what you're interested in finding out. And obviously leave some hangers for future episodes. Joshua, do you have anything that you'd like to kind of touch on before we finish up with Ethan?
I think that we kind of hit all the topics we wanted to talk about. Guys, I hope you enjoyed having my little brother on. He's a big inspiration to not only myself, but to a lot of people that know him. We are going to leave his Instagram link in the description. So if you were interested in following Ethan, as probably one day he will be either a senator or a House representative, he'll run for something eventually, it's a matter of time. But so if you'd like to continue to keep track of Ethan and maybe watch some of the stuff he posts, his Instagram is very comical. He doesn't make it too overbearing, so we will leave a link for that. I'm super excited. This was, like I said at the beginning of the episode, it was very monumental. It was very surreal. The last 4 years, being Ethan's brother and kind of living in this world that we got to live in for 4 years and being almost like a fly on the wall to everything that was going on and just riding the waves with Ethan, so to speak, as far as like the 2016 election and then the midterm elections and then 2020 where it kind of, it hit that peak of just how the surrealness and just the gratitude that we got to experience, not only as individuals, but just as a family. So I thank you for coming on. You brought some great insight as always. And again, guys, his link will be in the description. So you can continue to follow him. And I know it won't be the last episode. He'll be back eventually.
Yeah. Thanks y'all for having me. I think I'd love to come back at, if there are other topics that arise, certainly just offer, my 2 cents on how I see things. I'm no expert. I'm just a compassionate person who's lived it and likes to just kind of present an honest view of where we're at, but also hopefully a view that makes people realize that these conversations can produce some material benefit for us and just the way that we approach our government and also the way we approach each other. Being more compassionate, more understanding, but also more open to having these types of conversations, I think is how we'll move forward. So I've enjoyed being on the show, and I've enjoyed watching y'all as an audience member as well. So I sincerely appreciate it. I'll be back.
Oh man. Thank you so much, Ethan, and from all of our viewers as well. It's an extended thank you. And I'm certain that we're going to get plenty of comments about the conversation and requests. So we'll keep you posted as well. If you are not already subscribed to the show, by all means, please do. Then hit the bell notification, like it. All right, Ethan, I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm looking forward to getting you back to play around with us a bit more. So we'll continue to have the dialogue off screen, and we'll see the next time. All right.
Awesome.
All right, everybody, say goodbye to Ethan. Ethan, we'll touch base a little bit later, give you an idea about when this is going to be put online, so you can kind of, if you wanted to watch it as it unfolds in its premiere, then by all means jump on. All right, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right. Keep
Take
being
care,
great.
y'all.
Hey, Ethan, thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, there, my little Patriot stud. Now, your brother, awesome, by the way. Absolutely a joy to have him on. And it really, I'm an analyzer, right? Like on the DISC assessment, I'm a solid and hard C. and an I, so hence the humor element. But listening to that, if anybody's curious, not to just why I was so quiet through the process, is one, special guest, we want them to speak as much as, we can, obviously get them to speak, but also taking into consideration what he's saying. Listen to to really open up what he's sharing was fantastic on my side to really be able to experience, more of that eye-opening. Oh, wow, this is more of what's going on, because most of us are only informed, even if it's a conglomerate of news media sources to help us understand where we're at. Like, there's somebody who's there, like, to actually say, hey, I live in this what is this territory. So yeah, appreciate him being on. So Joshua, what you got, my man?
Ethan brings that, Chad and I are, as much as we follow this stuff and as much as we try to educate ourselves and research the best we can, it's nice to bring someone on the show like Ethan who, he went to school for it. He's enrolled at Georgetown University, trying to further that education on political science. So it's nice to get that behind the door access, so to speak, as far as what goes on a daily basis. The people who punch that 9 to 5 clock, who actually work in our government to make things better for everybody. And we kind of left off a little bit on the political state, so to speak, of where the Republican Party is right now. And I think that's the next topic I'd like to continue, because like I said, tomorrow is the last day of the Apex convention. And if you're unfamiliar with the Apex convention, it's more or less kind of a meeting where the Republican Party gets together and kind of talks about issues, especially after a lost election. You can think of it as like a precursor to the GOP national convention. And believe it or not, it's in Orlando. So it's pretty close to where Chad and I are. And I'm sure most of the people watching are. And Trump is he's the closing speaker. He's the last person to talk. And to think that Trump is just going to go away in the Republican Party, it's not going to happen. I think there'll be a restructuring in a sense of we'll get a fraction that will break off and be more of the Trump Republican Party, kind of starting that ideology that he created. But it's a big deal, and a lot of people don't know. Like during the show, even I had a couple people message me and say, "Hey, did you see that Trump is talking at the Apex?" Yeah, like he's still the man as far as Republican goes.
I'm absolutely so grateful of what he's done. He's woke up a lot of Republicans that just became kind of silent, shifted some people from that moderate position more towards conservative views. Some people that are a little too far on the conservative views, more of the further right, back towards center, and pulled some people from the left towards center, so we can start actually getting along. Although the media absolutely hated him for the fact that he was able to cross the divide, even though that's going to, people that are watching this that may be on the other side going, "Oh, he's just a horrible human being." That's not how I've experienced it. We've mentioned earlier, not only in this episode but other episodes, that we do have some liberal views. I have some liberal views, and I've held on to those a bit and spent more time kind of going through those liberal views prior to Trump taking office. Afterwards, I realized a little bit more about what our country needed versus what I needed and what I wanted to see working on the ideas and the theoretical model of those ideas versus the actual application of them. Now we're experiencing more of the shift for the theoretical idea, putting it into application without having a solid enough foundation to make it work. Too many big changes at one time. So I think that's something that a lot of people will relate to when they see what we're being told that we have to accept, bathroom things, and, like how we're now having to open up, female sports, things like that. So I think we need to have that stable conversation. So that's been my experience. We've shifted around a bit. Trump has done such a great job with it. He's now speaking. I was completely unaware of, up until President Trump anyway, that we even had conventions like this. I knew that the RNC occasionally did things, never really turned an eye to it. Same thing in the DNC, didn't really care. Now I'm like, I I feel remorse that I wasn't able to make it, or that you and I weren't able to be there live and doing this while it was taking place. So that's it's a bit unfortunate that we weren't able to actually get that set up. But future for our witnesses, we're planning to do things like this. We are going to be a little bit more than just in the office or in the studio. We're going to be out on site doing some things, and with my ridiculousness and Joshua's tenacity to research and get deep into the subject, we're going to be doing that. So keep an eye out for it. And also, I want to make sure that everybody's aware Joshua and I's position on this.
I apologize to nobody.
It's true. I mean, it's last minute. Like Chad said before, we both have full-time jobs. So, to just uproot your whole life and all the social and at home duties that we have to accomplish during our week, kind of figuring out the last minute, there's get something going on close by. At least it's in Orlando. It's definitely possible that had we known in advance, we could have made the drive and got some content. But again, like Ethan was referring to earlier in the episode, 2022 is going to be a busy year, especially in the state of Florida with Ron DeSantis running for re-election. So we will definitely be some on-site. I kind of want to add a little bit of a Crowder swing, so to speak, and kind of hear from people who are actually there, or not want to say protesting, but showing their ideologies in a public setting and trying to spread the word of what they believe in. And it'd be great to hear some other people give some feedback. And it's funny that you brought up the women's sports thing. And this is honestly, with this week, folks, like there was a lot going on in both our political world and just news in general. But obviously we had an amazing candidate that came on today as our first special guest. So I was more so focused on prepping for Ethan than I was all the daily nonsense that we hear all the time, which is never ending, which is great that we can find content pretty quick. But
I'll recap it for us too, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I will recap that. So what were you going to say? Because I'm going to get to this week as a recap, but I'm going to make it really concise.
Okay. I was going to touch on a little bit. The only thing that's been really grinding my gears, my TED Talk for the episode, is the in my opinion, the attack on female sports right now. And actually, there was a lot of people, females at universities, who were suing or fighting the universities for either medals they should have won or state titles, national titles, various awards that were given in their sport that was not awarded to them due to a biological male competing in that sport and then by winning it because he has a biological advantage over his competitors. And it was referred, and Biden just kind of threw it back to the universities and said, it's up to you. We have to start restructuring what we are allowed and how far we want to push the line to saying, I got no problem with it. If you want to live your life anyway, I got no problem with it. Whether you're trans, whether you're gay, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. What bothers me is when we start shoving those ideologies into a society that maybe isn't necessarily ready for it, and maybe as an enforcer, we're not really ready for it because with gender, with gender, identitivism or this new idea that's popping up, they can't even define what it means. No one can really tell you what gender means. So if we don't have a concrete base of factual, understood terms throughout the community and throughout the country as what is trans acceptable and what's not, and what that even means, then how can we enforce policies to the general public and to institutions like universities regarding to women's sports and expect it to be understood outcomes or good outcomes?
I got a solution about the whole, the trans sports competitions, things like that. Solution is men's sports, women's sports, trans sports. Another category, let everybody have what they want and we're happy. It's kind of like the whole gay marriage thing. I have no issue whatsoever. You do whatever it is you want to do, honey boo. No, you want to get married to the person that you identify in the same sex. I don't care. That's your love, your thing. But to make people accept it's wrong. But to just live your life and accept yourself, that's something that I support. So if you want to go that route, I'm not okay with, this individual. We have, just consider this. We have a trans female MMA fighter who has fractured 2 women's skulls in MMA, and this person's name Fallon Fox. This individual actually has they ravel, or she, or whatever, ravels in the fact that it's just dominating the sport. Well, we would not want to sit by idly and allow, just somebody beating the living daylights out of a woman. But yet with this, we're going to have so many people get behind it and be like, oh, it's so brave. It's a transgender woman to man, or man to woman, that is beating the living daylights out of a woman. And we're like, oh, it's so brave. It's fracturing skulls. That to me is not okay. Put the entire division in, say, you know what, this is the trans MMA fighters, and then let them go at it and let them do whatever it is they want to do. Fight away, but don't take it away from women's sports. And you've noticed that we don't see the trans females going against men. No, it's the other way.
Yeah.
So that's where, if we want a solution, there it is. Have it. I don't care. And let that take its own economy. If nobody tunes in, nobody tunes in. People tune in, fantastic. It's a viewership creates the money that the individuals make off of it anyway. Let it happen. Let it go the way that it's supposed to go. Right now, there's the shock and awe, but for how long before people stop watching? And then the women's sports as a whole takes a major hit, not just the fact there's an advantage because somebody's allowed to compete in that is obviously far more capable in that competition. Now you have these individuals, just dominating across the board. Before you know it, everybody's going to be like, I'm not interested in watching this anymore. I don't want to watch the train wreck of women getting their skulls fractured. So anyway, all right. So here's a piece that I wanted to throw in there, Joshua. That's kind of the recap for the week, because we have both been working on making sure we're set up properly for Ethan's coming on. So here is this week, as concise as I can make it. There it is, as concise as I can possibly make it. There's that, and there's also, hey, what's going on over in Syria? Oh, did we just actually make a declaration of war and started bombing people over there? And then this is what we get. We're going to sign this stuff into law, and you don't have to worry about that. And look over here. Look over here. Oh, wait, Joshua, don't look at Syria. Don't look at, no, over here. And then you get this.
Yeah. So what? It took him 1 month. How many bombs? Well, Trump dropped 1 bomb. We know.
Wait. Joshua, the Dems are coming. The Dems are coming. Hey, you gotta let them get in the room first, man. Let them in. Hey, crew. Hey, Billy, move over. All right.
Yeah, it's
You're saying.
Yeah, it's crazy that, and I got no problem with females playing male sports. I don't. It's because they have a sport to go to if they so choose, that maybe the biological advantage that males have over females is too much to overcome. But they still have the right to try to compete in male sports if they want to, because they have another league to go back to if it doesn't work out. So they have options as far as competition goes. Whereas, like you referred to, where the trans movement, so to speak, is more so focusing on female athletics than they are male athletics. So I feel like how we target civil injustice in the world, especially because, race, gender are often things that are brought up in civil rights. And right now we're having this period of almost overshadowment, in my opinion, of the trans movement, kind of overgoing women's, rights to compete in sports. Eventually, I think it'll come to a close. I really do. I think, Chad actually brought up a good idea as far as just having completely different spectrums of competition. And if you choose to exit that competition, that's up to you, but at least you have your own area to go back to. But we definitely got to have some kind of restructuring as far as who can compete in what sport and who can't. But yeah, as far as the week goes, it was a full moon. So it was crazy. It was a crazy week. And everyone I've talked to, just my peers, have been like, this is a pretty crazy week. If you live in Florida, people are driving insanity. They're swerving all over the place. Those definitely a heightened week. It didn't take Biden to drop, too long to drop a bomb or start preparing to drop bombs. President Trump dropped one bomb, and that was against a known affiliate who hated America and who was definitely going to put lives at risk. And here we are attacking Syria, picking up right where Obama left off. I vaguely remember Obama being involved with Syria and also Lebanon during his administration. So, Biden is back at it, baby. He's writing that lunch menu. He's the fiasco continues. It's only been a month. It hasn't even been that long. It's felt like 10 years he's been in office.
I swear, I want to get the lunch menu that he signed, thinking it was an executive order, and I want to get a copy of it for both of us and put it on our walls, as like memorabilia, because that man is signing everything. He's like, oh, what a cute baby, and he's like, man, I just fell asleep writing this. So you know what, I'm okay with that ad hominem attacks on that silly bastard.
Did he say he doesn't even know what he's signing? I heard a quote that he was like, sometimes I don't even know what I'm signing.
Yeah, I need to get that audio clip just so that the people like, oh, you make this stuff up. No, I'm not. Like, it's just the same as, let me back it out here. Nope. So yes, he said this.
Everybody knows I like kids better than people.
Could that be an innocuous thing? You know what? I don't know, but every time it seems like an adult of that age really spends a lot of time talking about kids. Usually later on, you find out there's something really wrong. But then again, we've got our producer.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
And he's a bad dude because he doesn't take any damn guff. All right. So, yeah. And there was a point that I wanted to make, but now it seems to have eluded me. But I will be promoting the Make Your Own League. Oh, well, that reminds me. Okay. I did find out this morning that the NBA does not have a gender restriction. You could be a female and play in the NBA.
Really? Interesting.
Yep. Now, the WNBA, you cannot be a male and play in it.
Good.
That's a protection. Now, if these transgender laws go into effect, they will end up allowing men to play in the WNBA. So, but as it stands right now, women can get into the NBA. They just need to get hired in, and that's off of prowess, your ability to play the game. And if you're not able to compete with those guys, they're going to go, it's the basics of capitalism. They're going to go with the best producing opportunities. That person can play. It doesn't always have to do with height, because there were I don't remember the guy's name, but he's like 5'4" and was just an absolute, like, beyond impressive in the NBA. I forgot his name.
It was Nate Robinson. I know he's on the shorter side, and he's got the pop. Man, I'm not a giant basketball fan, but I'm pretty sure it's Nate Robinson. I believe we were talking about. Could be wrong.
And we have had female kickers in the football league. So
there's one man.
Yeah, we've had them. It's not like it's not there. What it is trying to put like a legislation in place that says you have to. It's like an affirmative action piece. Put it on these sports teams, and then public outcry through the keyboard warriors predominantly are going to be the ones saying, well, they're just going to go around and hunt the teams, not giving a damn about the sport. They'll just look for the people that are not in compliance and then shame them into doing it, or threaten them, as the cancel culture, or as I like to say, cancer culture, likes to put it. So yeah, that's a big piece, man. It's something that we really should keep an eye on. But I also have to say about this topic for the time being,
you can fuck that sky high.
Create your own league. Let's go with it from there. All right. Do we have another subject, correct?
Yeah, and not only with the gender issues going on, but last week was not a great week in the stock market, and you can really kind of predict economic outputs in the future based on the stock market, based on some bonds, based on just a lot of faction that go on with finance. You can see that over the week that commodities were up a little bit, meaning that people were a little bit afraid of inflation, and they feel like corn or beef or oil might be more valuable than money. So it's not just social norms that were trying to deal with at the moment now, but also a kind of a struggling economy. There's a lot of people not working. California, as we talk about a lot on the show, it looks like a shanty town. I mean, people are moving out of there record numbers. And so if your life hasn't been too affected by the COVID-19 economic shutdowns, which I highly doubt, I feel like everyone has been affected in some way. But our economic, it's starting to shift a little bit. Gas prices are going up. Mark my words, we're looking at $4 gas prices by 2023, I bet, minimum. It may even be next year. With Saudi Arabia kind of, putting a stranglehold on the oil now that we're starting to kind of open up, and more flights are going and more people driving around. I mean, just in our state, gas has gone up almost $1. We were at like 160. Now it's like almost, I think it was 255 yesterday. So the price of gas is rising. So a lot of economic tension going on here. And just wait, interest rates are starting to rise. So economic problems are starting to happen thanks to Biden.
Yeah, we are going to see some ridiculous gas prices, because if you see just like, okay, well, Texas had obviously with the freeze, we've had an issue there. It's going to affect our gas prices. We've also had, like what's going on with our disrupting the Middle East now, getting back over there and mess around and, upset some of these peace pacts and things. And if you think that doesn't come with an economic retaliation, we're poorly guided if you don't think that happens. We're already in a position where, some people have not returned back to full capacity. They're on a limited budget. They're not making what they were prior to the, is it a 0.6 fatality rate condition that's been going around the world? I got a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to right now, especially since I don't want this episode flagged and taken down. So if we're going to be paying a hell of a lot more money for our basic needs. It's not just gas. Every single commodity that we value is going to have a petroleum value that has been affected. So if it's just transporting your food, it's going to go up. Therefore, the customer is going to have to bear the cost. Our own gas prices, everything, tires, you name it. If it's used, petroleum is used to make it, it's going to increase in costs. And you're already going to have these our reduction in our income. So it's a high potential for an economic disaster if we do not pay close attention and do what we can to preserve ourselves in the onset of what's coming. So not a doom and gloom thing. It's more of a, let's play this smart. If you got the guy in office you don't want there, do what you can to preserve the future that you have within your means. So don't buy the big ass truck that's going to end up, burning a whole hell of a lot of gas if it's not within your real conceivable budget. Even if your budget's reduced, it's not a bad idea to figure out if your budget was reduced again, if you would be able to afford that thing, whatever it is. So just a little bit of a tidbit. I'm not exactly a financial advisor, so don't take my word for it. Just consider with a little bit of logic how to preserve yourself. Now to the gas prices again. Everything else on that one, Joshua, I didn't mean to hijack you. I just feel like I had to pull out my soapbox and start beating my chest in my own little TED rant over here.
No, you're good. I mean, definitely start thinking in the future. Actually, me and my significant other talked about this yesterday, just as far as building constraints in your own financial portfolio. It's very natural. It's speculating. You're speculating on what the economy is going to be like, which then makes you make choices. That's what economics is all about. How to satisfy unlimited wants with limited resources, and in order for us to do that, we have to make choices. So normally, especially with going from a more Republican presidency, a more Republican conservative viewpoint on the economic situation in our country versus a Democratic, obviously you're going to see a little bit of interest rates change eventually. So if you're looking to buy a house, do it soon because they're probably going to go up. But that's one of my biggest goals here in the next 2 years is try to jump on the housing market before it shoots back up again and interest rates go to like 15%. Before prices go up of food, which is probably going to happen. Maybe not too bad. The Federal Reserve doesn't seem too nervous about it, but they are printing a lot of money, and I'm not sure if we have the understanding or the means to cover that increase of the money supply into our economic situation, and also the limiting of income that people have, and the ability to kind of offset those, the less work, more money in the economy, and just kind of balance it out. So just be smart with those decisions. Again, me and Chad are not financial advisors, and this is just advice. We love our subscribers. We try to help you guys out, and just to try to think outside the box a little bit, be a little more present in your financial situation. But other than that, I mean, we got Apex tomorrow. Again, Chad and I wanted to make this episode very much so about our special guest, and it was a blast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But I don't have too much more, Chad, to be honest with you.
Wonderful. Hey, I do want to say, all right, Joshua, you're awesome. You really come through like every time. So thank you for everything you're doing for this show and for our guests, and our not only our guests but also our viewers. I do want to say that we do have another special guest lined up that works in student loans. And she's going to kind of give us a little bit more of the down and dirty over what student loans do, what's actually going on behind the scenes. I've already got a little bit of a preview of it, and I will tell you right now, it will be informative. And if you're like me, you will feel your pulse rise when you find out exactly how businesses have put themselves in a position where they can take advantage of the government, which if they're taking advantage of the government, they're taking advantage of you as the individual. So there are still gold rushes taking place. It's just that most people don't know what the gold rush is. So they're missing out on it. And in this, I don't consider it a good thing. It's taking advantage of a lot of people. So Ethan was highly eye-opening today. Awesome job. Getting into future guests. I am getting a lot more interaction myself with people bringing up subjects that they're really passionate about and feel that they're worthy of being more to be put out there to open some eyes. That's pretty much what I have for the show as well. But my closing remarks and my takeaways on this is we do have a lot of things going on that is so incredibly beneficial to understand. I've got a little renewed sense of hope when it comes to the future of politics in our country, with Ethan's, giving us the insight on more of how these individuals work with each other, these staffers work with each other in DC. That was actually a big and a wonderful eye opener. It really was a heartfelt moment, without any kind of sarcasm at all. I really do feel, that it's increased my hopefulness for the future, where it looked like we were kind of headed down a very, very dangerous path. And I don't think we're not. I just think that we do have a light that there is out there. There's a tunnel that would say, you know what, that's maybe a good thing. There's a good possibility we may right this thing overall. So, Joshua, you got anything in closing?
Definitely. I love what Chad said. I love how Ethan brought that energy. He brought that insight to the show. I'm super excited for the next guest to come on in regards to student loan, because I'm sure some of you, if not all of the people listening right now, have dealt with student loan problems. And just a little bit of a cliffhanger into the next episode. I think it's a major topic. There's a variety of problems on both sides as far as how to handle the situation, how to correct this massive debt that almost everyone in America who tries to better themselves takes on in their life. And it'll be awesome to have that person come on, and it's a juicy subject. I mean, so if you liked today, if you liked the topics we hit, if you liked Ethan, please come back for the next one, because I think it could be very polarizing. It could be very informative, and it could be a topic that a lot of people maybe don't understand. Maybe they haven't gone to college, or they haven't experienced it themselves, but it's going to bring a lot of value, and I think you're really going to like it. It's going to be very entertaining.
I love it. Yeah. And if to add just one little piece as a cliffhanger, for the people that did actually take student loans, they are obviously dealing with the debt. But for the people that didn't, so are you. We're all actually paying for these student loans. That was a beautiful eye opener last night. It was more than a beautiful eye opener. It got me pretty fired up to find out that I actually have been paying for people's degrees, and it's not something that I had any awareness to, aside from obviously a little bit of government money. But we're going to actually find out how much of that's actually affecting you. So until next time, guys and gals, this is one thing that I missed, and I am very sorry. But this is for you, Joshua. This is also for you, the guests, and our viewers. I can't go without that. And then we do have one more that I wanted to throw out there. This is for all of you, cool patriots. This is by popular demand. Yes, it tastes like the American flag. That's what it tastes like. That's freaking good.
That's what it tastes like, baby. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next time. Chad left you with a little carrot, a little rabbit hole that we're about to go down. So again, thank you, and God bless America. Enjoy your Saturday, and we'll see you next time.
Till next time, Chad Brochure, Chad Ever Brochures, Joshua McClendon. This was Waking the People with our special guest, Ethan Gallagher. So, all right, next time. We'll see you guys soon.
Deuces.
Deuces. Wait, no, we got to let it go with the baby.